Okay, I have had the Nikon Z50 II for review, and that's quite exciting because it's always fun to get your hands on the latest and greatest kind of flagship, super expensive, super capable cameras. But I really enjoy testing out some of the more affordable, smaller cameras. I think it's really interesting to see where they're at, how they're performing, and what they're able to do, because especially these days, I just think they're so capable, and they're the cameras that are kind of for a lot of different people, right? They might be for someone starting out, someone who wants to get their first kind of proper camera, right, that can do lots of stuff, or even someone who is a professional, someone like me, for example, who would just love to have a weekend camera, right? This is ideal for that kind of stuff. A travel camera, a second camera. There's lots of different uses for a camera like the Z50 II, which is really fun. I think it makes it an exciting camera to test out. And these days in particular, these cameras are just so capable. It's really quite interesting to just see what they can do, especially when you're thinking about comparing them against some of these super high-end cameras. So that leads us to the Z50 II. Now, it has been a little while since we saw the original Z50, which was a nice little compact APS-C camera. And the Z50 II absolutely follows in those footsteps, right? It's a nice, small, compact APS-C camera. You've still got a 20.9 megapixel sensor, right? And while it might have been nicer to see a little bit of a bump up there in resolution, actually, I think this is fine. I think for the kind of camera this is, I think that's a completely fine resolution. I think that you still have enough there to crop a little bit if you want to. You're still going to get nice images. And I've got to say, the image quality is really, really good. I've really enjoyed using this. And something which has blown my mind is how well this camera is able to handle high ISO values, which I think for the kind of person who might be using this camera is amazing. I bumped this up to ISO values I would never ever use, and we'll get onto why in a minute. And those images, while, understandably, once you're talking about ISO 40,000 and above, you are expecting a level of, should we say, degradation in terms of image quality. I can't believe how usable those images are. Now, the reason I say all this, I was using this camera in probably what I would consider to be the worst possible way I could actually have to test this out. Now, most of that is outside of my control, right? I'm using the kit lens with it, which, while completely fine and actually quite fun lens to use, it's a great all-rounder option, and certainly for someone starting out, it's a fantastic option. It's a little less bright than you might like, and it's maybe just a little bit less exciting than you might like, right? As a kit lens tends to be. And you couple that with some of the most dull, boring weather I could possibly have imagined, right? It's not even bad weather where it's interesting. It's just grey and it's very dark. And it leads me to need to test out things like the higher ISO values. And actually, while at first that might seem a little bit frustrating, this is really interesting because I've really enjoyed using this camera, and this is in the worst possible environment to use it. So putting this in almost any other situation is just going to make this better and more fun, right? I can totally imagine taking this traveling because it takes up so little space in terms of what you actually need to bring with you. And it's such an easy to use and just fun camera to go out and shoot with. And frankly, incredibly capable when it comes to photo and video. In terms of speed, you can still shoot 11 frames a second in RAW or 30 frames a second in JPEG. So for the kind of price point this is coming in at, that is remarkable. And you have things like pre-release in camera as well. So you can absolutely nail the shot. That means you can get some nice fast moving subjects for sure. What is really cool though, is this has the latest processor, the X-Speed 7, which is actually the same processor you find in the Z9 and the Z8. And that brings with it some massive upgrades over the original Z50 and makes this a perfect, I think, second camera to cameras like the Z8 and the Z9, right? Because you really feel it in things like the autofocus, which works incredibly well. It's very, very fast and very accurate. When I was taking photos of my dog, Nala, the autofocus was immediately locking onto her eye and then giving me the option to switch between her two eyes. Which one did I want to focus on? And that would happen in different lighting conditions, right? Bad lighting, good lighting, it would just pick that up, track it, no problem at all. It's a hybrid AF system, and actually it's the same system that you find in those flagship cameras, which means that you would expect it to work incredibly well, and it certainly does. You've got subject detection modes for people, for animals, for vehicles, subject tracking. So it just makes your life incredibly easy. And certainly, whether you are someone who is using this as a second camera, right, and therefore you are going to really appreciate having a lot of those same features and same qualities that you find in your main camera, or whether you're someone who is just starting out, this is your first proper camera, this is so helpful. I can only imagine how good this would have been if this was my first proper camera. It would have been so good to have something like this in that camera for me to properly get started with photography. The camera really allows you the space to learn and grow with it, because it can do an awful lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the settings, the autofocus, the way the image looks, and just allow you to focus on the framing, the composition of your shots and things like that. And as you grow as a photographer, you can grow with it, right? You can take over more of the settings, learn manual photography, and the camera is just able to kind of work with you in that way, which I love. And a camera like this, I think that's ideal. And if you're getting it as a second camera, you're already there, right? And you know exactly what you want. The camera is able to do as much of the work as you want it to do. And that also extends into video, where this is a really capable hybrid camera. It'll shoot all the way up to 4K 60. That is with a crop, which in a camera like this, you would kind of expect a little bit anyway. But you can shoot up to 4K 30p without a crop, which I think is great. So you could do stuff like this, no problem, no crop, all good. You've got full HD 120 frames a second as well. 10 bits, 8-bit video. You've got N-Log available as well. And then you've got looks that you can apply to footage in camera. So again, you've got room for how you want to shoot, right? If you want to shoot in N-Log, do all your color grading in post, you've got the option to do that. You've got the room and the versatility to shape that footage as much as you want. But if you want everything to be done in camera, if you want the camera to pretty much handle all of that, you can. You can just set the looks in camera and away you go. And once you finish recording, it's already graded, already looks the way you want it to look. So you've got options there. I love that. I love the more options, the better. It just allows more people and more types of people to get the most out of a camera like this. The actual design of the camera is very similar in some ways to the original Z50, but there are some improvements, I think. So the grip, for example, does feel better in the hands. Even though it's a small camera, it's very comfortable to actually hold. You also have things like a brighter EVF. The vari-angle screen is great as well. That allows you to see yourself if you were filming just like this, but it also just makes it a lot easier, I think, to use a camera like this. I think that's great. And even with the battery and the card, it's about 520 grams, which is incredibly light. I mean, that's really, really light. If you've got a small lens on there, this is an incredibly easy camera to just take out and about with you without really having to worry about it. You certainly don't need a dedicated camera bag for it. And it's very easy to just bring this with you if you're going traveling, again, without really worrying. If it's a one camera, one lens setup, it's almost a no-brainer. You would absolutely just take it with you. It's kind of made for that kind of thing. Now, we don't usually talk that much about price because prices change, right, all the time. But around $849, this camera is remarkable, I think. I think that it offers so much and it can really do a lot for you, no matter kind of what you want to use it for. I think it offers a huge amount to lots of different types of photographers and videographers as well. I think Nikon are just having an absolutely great run of time here, where they're just absolutely knocking it out of the park with a lot of these cameras. And I think whether you want this as your first proper camera, right, whether you want it to make content as a content creator, or whether you want it as a second camera to a Z8 or a Z9, I think the Z50 II offers a huge amount, and I have really enjoyed my time with it. I would love to test it out again with a little bit of sun, you know, a little bit of light would be nice. But we'll see. Now you can check out the Z50 II, all of the spec, all of the pricing, all the fun stuff by checking out the link down in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, because there's new stuff all the time, new reviews, new tutorials. There's loads of stuff coming your way. I will see you in the next video, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.